Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel, Unlimited Feminine. Today, in today's episode, we are going to be talking about the importance of feminine energy and the importance of masculine energy. I was talking with someone the other day, and it was brought to my attention that they were under the impression that I was like really focusing so much on the feminine energy and not so much on the masculine energy, and like the fear of, oh no, like what if we get into too much masculine energy? Masculine energy must be really bad. We as women must stay in our feminine energy. And I just want to dispel that way of thinking, because it is so important that even we as women, that we have an element of masculine energy within us. It is so, so important. I love the masculine energy. I love everything that it involves, everything that it entails, and everything about it. And I love the feminine energy. The more that I have learned about the feminine, and the more that I have seen how powerful it is, and the more that I have settled back into my feminine energy, the more I have just fallen in love with it. And so I really want to try to bring these together and show you guys that it is so, so important that there is both of them within us. The important thing to remember is that as a woman, you should be operating in your feminine energy 85 to 90% of the time, and in your masculine energy about 10% of the time. And it would be the same for a man. So a man should be operating in his masculine energy 85 to 90% of the time, and in his feminine energy that like last 10%, right? So what does this look like? What does this mean? Because if you are not familiar with what these different energies are and how they show up in the world, this can feel very confusing, and it can feel very frustrating, and it can just lead to a lot of misconceptions. So I feel like it's really, really important that I explain this to you in the best of my knowledge, the way that I can explain it to you guys. And of course that I love this. I love this day and age. I love living at this time because there is so much information out there. So if, as I'm explaining this, you don't resonate with how I'm explaining it, or it's not making sense, there are so many other people out there that teach on this same topic. So you can, if you're interested in it, you can always go and find some other content creator that is explaining it in a way that you can understand it. So basically how this is, you think of the man and then you think of the woman, right? And you just kind of look on the outside for the general idea of what the masculine and feminine looks like. So on the outside, you see the man, and he's more outward. He's usually more out there. You think of like little boys, they're usually a lot more out there, more in your face, more loud, more involved. They're more of like the go out and like do things and have adventures. They're more likely to maybe do things that are dangerous. They're just way more out there. And then you can also think of the male anatomy. Like the male anatomy is on the outside. It's very visible to the world. And then let's look over to the feminine. And the feminine in general, now I feel like I do have to preface that, because there are definitely girls that are very adventurous, that are very rambunctious, that are very much out there. And that's okay. Very much okay. But I'm kind of I want you to look at the general picture, and it will maybe help you get an idea in your head. And this might be triggering for some of you guys, because I know for me, when I first started learning about the feminine energy, it was triggering for me. So bear with me, give me some time to explain how I understand it, and hopefully you will be able to start seeing how they each have value. Okay, this is not a one is better than the other at all. That is not what this is about. Okay, so going back to the feminine, like let's look at the feminine. Typically, the girls are a little bit more reserved. They're usually a little bit more quiet, maybe a little bit more well-behaved, if you want to say that. They're usually a little bit more inward, And then you also look at the female anatomy. The female anatomy is their reproductive organs are inside, they're hidden, they're not out there for the world to see. Okay. All right, so let's look, how does this correlate with the masculine and the feminine energy? So the masculine energy is going to be more of the outward energy. They are typically the protectors, the providers, the ones that go out into the world. You think of, back in pioneer or early settlers times, it was the men who went out and they did the hunting. They went out and they fought the different enemies that may be a potential threat to their families. They were the ones that went out and they built the homes. Like there was just a lot of outward energy that went into being a man to survive, right? Again, looking kind of back at maybe the olden days, there's just way more out there, way more visible, a bigger push out into the world. And then you think of the feminine, the females, again, back in the early settlers' time, the men built the home, or the men built the house, and the woman made it a home. She's the one that made sure that there was food on the table. She's the one that made sure that there was, adequate blankets and, the adequate things that you would need to survive comfortably in the home. She was more, I guess you could say, hidden, more protected, more, that was her role. It was to stay kind of more in the home and do the nurturing and the providing for the children and stuff like that. So you look at those two different roles, and again, we're looking, way back when in early settlers' time, it was much easier to see the difference between the masculine and the feminine in their energies and how they showed up in the world. Nowadays, of course, women are just as capable as men to be able to go into the workforce, to be able to provide for their families, to be able to join the army, to be able to serve and to protect and to do all of those things. I'm not saying that a woman shouldn't do that. Okay. Please, if you take nothing back away from this, please know that I am not trying to put any one person into a box. I'm just trying to explain the difference between masculine and feminine energy. And it's the same as explaining the difference between a masculine and a feminine body. Like, they cannot, and they were never intended to do the same thing. Okay? And that does not mean that one is better than the other at all. They're different, they're separate, but when they come together, it creates something that is amazing. Okay? When they come together, they are able to create life. They're able to create unity. They're able to create this perfect union of each other. Okay, and that's exactly how it is with masculine and feminine energy. All right, so the feminine energy, if you are wanting to live more in your feminine energy, it would require you, if you have been living maybe more in that outward world of like pushing yourself out there, going out and trying to show up in the world, trying to prove your worth. There's a lot of that. The masculine, they kind of have to, like, that's their job. That's part of the masculine energy, is that they prove that they are worthy. I almost like to think of, how like birds, or like the male, you think of like an elk or deer or anything, they have to prove that they are the worthy mate for the female. Okay, they fight with each other. They compete with each other to prove that they are the best fit for this female. All right, the females, they never fight for the man. They never, and if you look at nature, the female never is the one that has to prove her worth to the male, ever. She is there, she is valuable because she is a female, and it is the male that has to prove that they are worthy of the female's attention. And it's kind of the same way with the feminine and the masculine energy. The masculine energy, their drive is to go out and to prove that they are worthy, to prove that there is something of value to them. That is why there is so much outward force when it comes to the masculine energy. Whereas the feminine energy, when you really get connected to your feminine energy, she knows that she is of value because she is a woman. She doesn't have to go out into the workforce. She doesn't have to provide. She doesn't have to bring anything in to prove that she is worthy. She is worthy simply because she is a woman. Okay, like it's just different. Biologically, it's just different. Again, there's nothing wrong if a woman wants to go out and do all those things. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you're wanting to get into connection and really settle into your feminine energy, you need to realize that there is a difference between the masculine and the feminine. And if you feel a lot of stress, and if you feel really tight, and if you feel a lot of like exhaustion, these are really, really good indications that you as a woman, you are living in masculine energy. You're living too much in your masculine energy. Now, a woman is able to create simply because she's a woman, right? We are given the organs in our bodies to be able to create life, all right? And I love looking at nature because it makes so much sense to me, and it helps me be like, oh, that's how it correlates. Like, that's how it works. In today's world, the masculine is very much praised. They're very, everybody wants to be praised. Everybody wants to be wanted. Everybody wants everybody to look up to them. And that is the masculine trait. And so we as women, sometimes we feel very pushed to the side, that what we contribute isn't of value. And unfortunately, it is something that the world is actively teaching. And it's so sad to me. That, to me, is the devil's way of destroying mankind. All right? God gave us the incredible gift to be a woman, which is to create life, which is to naturally be nurturing, to be loving, to be more empathetic, to be able to slow down, to be able to be in tune with our bodies, to be able to be in tune with our children, with the people around us, to be able to support and to love our husbands or our partners. Like, those are innate God-given rights to the feminine. And when we are able to show up in that way, we then encourage and help the masculine to do the things that he needs to do to give us the life that we want, that lets us to live in our feminine energy, which is that more relaxed and just in tune, and this somehow just knowing what it is our bodies need, knowing what other people need. When we're so busy with the world and we're so busy trying to compete, which again, remember, women were never meant to compete. We were never, ever supposed to compete. You look at the women or the girl animals or in nature, they don't compete. They exist, they know their value, and they let the men around them compete to prove that they're worthy. All right. And then going back to what I was saying earlier, how our bodies, we were gifted everything that we need to be able to create. So again, going back to nature before I got sidetracked with something else, once we are, say, with child, we have this child growing within us. We are creating life, like actively. Our body is actively creating life, but we are not actually doing anything. Okay? There is nothing, once you are with child, once you're pregnant, once you're expecting, there is literally nothing that you can physically do to make the baby grow. Okay? There are things that you can do to support, like you can make sure you're eating healthy. You can make sure that you're drinking enough water. You can make sure that you are exercising, doing all of those things that you should do, getting enough sleep. Like, you can do all of those things. But you can't actively be putting the little cells together and separating the different cells and multiplying the different cells. You can't do any of those things. You have to just sit back and trust that it is creating. That is also part of your feminine energy. All right. And that goes with anything, with creating anything, not just life, is we are gifted with the ability to create, to multiply, and then we don't have to actually do anything. We don't have to put all the cells together. Okay. We support by, maybe reading good books or by learning things that we need to learn, but we don't have to actually do anything to be in our feminine energy. Does that make sense? Like, I feel like it was so confusing to me at first, but it was also so fascinating to me to be like, wait, what? Like I was never really taught about feminine energy and the power and the importance of it. All right. I just thought, oh, well, you go to school and when you get into college, you need to get a job so that you can, possibly provide for your family, like all of these things, which is not a bad thing, but that's a very masculine way of looking at like having to go out and do things, having to go out and prove your worth. And that's not to say that it would be okay or acceptable for a girl to just sit around and do nothing and just expect this incredible life to fall into her lap. Again, it's like creating a baby. The more you do to support this child growing within you, the better you are mentally prepared, physically prepared, and the healthier the child is. So your feminine energy, it's already part of you. It's already there, but you can definitely do things to help support it and help it to grow. Okay. And that comes from connecting with your intuition. That comes from letting God speak to you in the way that he speaks to you and being still and listening to it. That is one of my favorite gifts as a woman, is my intuition. Being able to learn to really hone in on that and being able to really be connected with my heavenly parents as they help to guide me through this life. So going back to the masculine and the feminine energy, they are so important. They're both important, and we need both of them within our bodies, okay, within our souls. So what does the masculine look like in a feminine body? Okay, so this is what it looks like for me. The masculine is the one that sets the structure for the day. So my masculine is going to be the one that sets the alarm for me to get up in the morning. It's going to be the one that sets the alarm to make sure that my kids get off to school on time. It's going to be the one that has the to-do list of this is what we need to get done today. Okay, that is like the masculine structure. You think of, again, a home. The structure is the masculine, and the interior is going to be the feminine. Okay, a little bit more flowing on the feminine or on the interior. You don't want the structure of your home to be flowing, right? Like that would be super dangerous. That is structured, that's rigid. But what happens on the inside can be a little bit more flowing, okay? Like there can be a little bit more movement on the inside, a little bit more changing things around on the inside. It doesn't always have to be exactly the same. So my masculine is going to be the one that looks like creating this structure for me for my day so that I know what I need to get done and I know kind of the time frame of what I need to do to get the stuff done. And then what does my feminine look like? My feminine is going to look like, what do we want to have for breakfast this morning? What feels good for me to have for breakfast this morning? Maybe I had scheduled that we were going to have scrambled eggs and bacon, but actually it just feels really good to maybe have some fruit and a bagel instead. So my feminine can be a little bit more flowing. Like we don't have to stick with the plan. We can be a little bit more flowing, but we do have to have breakfast, right? So that structure has to be there. There has to be breakfast. What we choose to have for breakfast can be a little bit more up to what I'm feeling for the moment, right? Okay, so then I choose what I'm going to have for breakfast. And then if I have the opportunity to be like a stay-at-home mom, I might have a list of things that I have to get done. Or even if I am a working mom, I have a list of things that I have to get done, right? And that's the masculine structure. Females, women are very good at getting things done, but we can bring a softness to it. We can bring that feminine flow to it, all right? So instead of maybe doing 1, 2, 3, 4 on the list, maybe it's going to look like 3, 2, 1, 4. Like we have the opportunity to flow a little bit and being like, well, what do I feel like I need to do first? What does it feel like needs to happen first? Really go into that feeling part, okay? If you don't give your feminine the structure, then it's really hard. Sometimes there's too much flow. It's like a river. If you have a river and the banks of the river are the masculine energy and it keeps the river where it's supposed to be, right? It's contained. If you don't have the banks of the river, or if there's a flood, then this water goes everywhere and there's no direction to it. It kind of just goes everywhere. So kind of think of that as the masculine. It's giving you that structure, and then you can flow within that structure. And that's a really good way to start getting in connection with your feminine energy. If you have no idea how to even do it, start looking at your to-do list, and instead of doing 1, 2, 3, 4, feel it and be like, okay, do I want to do laundry first, or do I want to do grocery shopping first, or do I want to do this project for work first, or do I want to do this project for work first? Like, feel into your body, and it will be a really fun exercise for you, because you will start to be able to lead with your feminine energy. And even if you are a working woman, which there's nothing wrong with that, you can definitely be in your feminine energy and bring that to work. And the coolest thing is, you guys, when you bring your feminine energy, when you stop trying to live in the masculine energy and you start living in your feminine energy, you are much more productive. You are much more at peace with yourself. You're able to rest better. Your body feels better. Everything is better when you become more aligned with your feminine energy. And you can do that no matter what it is you are doing. You can bring feminine energy to anything. All you have to do is settle into yourself and really listen to your intuition and let it guide you. Okay, because I do not know what it's like to live your life. Okay, I don't know the circumstances of your life. I only know the circumstances of my life. But you know the circumstances of your life. And when you start to allow your feminine energy to come out and play and come out and lead, you will be amazed at the difference that comes. Okay, that you are able to create easier. That things that used to maybe take you a long time are much simpler, because you were always supposed to be in feminine energy. Okay, you were not ever supposed to be 90% of the time in your masculine energy. That's exhausting. That's like living a life that you were never supposed to live. So if you can settle back into your feminine energy, it will be so much easier for you. It will go so much better, and you will feel so much more at peace with yourself. Okay? And again, you have to have both the masculine and the feminine, and the masculine must have some feminine to them as well. If the masculine was only in their masculine, they would be more like dictators, like very structured. There'd be no empathy, there'd be no compassion, there'd be so much structure. And if the feminine was only in her feminine and there was no masculine, there would be nothing getting done, because there would just be flow everywhere. It would just be complete chaos. Okay, so it's kind of like, I see it as like the moon and the sun, right? Like if we were always if there was always the sun, if we never had the moon, then that would be exhausting for us. Like our biological clocks would be off. It would just be really hard for us. There would be no resting time. It would not work. The world could not work, and it would not function the way it's supposed to if there was only the sun. And the same if it was always nighttime. That would be so detrimental to us if it was only nighttime. But we have both. We have the sun, and there are good things that come from the sun, and then we have the moon, and there are incredible good things that come from the moon. And it's the same with the feminine and the energy. They both bring the feminine and the masculine energy. They both bring so much value to the world. One is not better than the other. Okay? I am a woman, so I love to be in my feminine energy. That is where I want to stay 90% of the time, because it feels good to me. I am much more productive when I am living in my feminine energy. I get so much done because I have that 10% that is giving me the structure. This is what we need to do today. How do you want to do it? How do you want to get this done? And I let my feminine energy come in and do what she needs to do, and things just flow so much better. So for me, I love being in my feminine. I don't want to be in my masculine. That would be so damaging to me. I have lived in my masculine. I have lived in survival mode. And that was not a good place for me because I was never supposed to live in that space. So for me, the feminine is better because I am a woman. Now, for a man, living in his masculine is so much better because he is a man. He needs to be the one that competes. He needs to be the one that goes out and proves his worth, that brings home the things to provide for his woman, he or his home, his family, whatever it is. Like that's in his nature, like in his divine nature, not just in his physical nature, but he came to this earth from our heavenly parents with the drive to provide, to protect, and to live 90% of the time in his masculine energy. But then he was also gifted with the ability to have compassion, to have love, to be kind, and to flow with certain things that need to flow. Okay, right? So I want to make sure that you guys know that this is not a one is better than the other. These are two perfect puzzles that when they are put together, it makes the world go round. It is how it was supposed to be. It is the way our heavenly parents designed us to be. Okay? Men want to protect and provide for a feminine woman. Okay? It's hard for them when we as women are living in our masculine energy and then we're like, why are the men not providing for us? Because men don't want to provide for other men. Men don't want to provide for other masculine. So if you are wanting a man to protect and provide for you, you must show up as his polar opposite. Magnets will go together when they are polar opposite. But if they are the same, they actually repel each other. You can't make them stick. And so if you are confused as to why you are not in this relationship where the man wants to protect and provide for you, or you're not able to find someone who wants to do that, maybe take a quick look at your energy and find out, where am I showing up? How am I showing up? Am I living in my masculine? Am I living in my feminine? Okay? It's so cool, you guys. I have loved learning about this, and there are so many light bulbs going off in my head. I wish that I would have known this 20 years ago. It would have changed the entire direction that my relationships had gone in. It would have changed so much. I do have to give myself grace, because if I was supposed to know this at that time, I would have known that. I didn't know at the time, but I am learning now how to live in my feminine, how that supports the masculine and how the masculine supports me, how we come together as a beautiful connection of the two. So I am grateful that you guys came on here. I'm grateful that you listened. I hope that this shed a little bit of light on it. I know it can be really confusing, because it was for me. I was like, wait, feminine, masculine, what is going on? What are you talking about? It was really confusing until I really started learning more about it, and I had multiple sources that I was going to, that I was learning, and they were all saying basically the same thing but in different ways, and so it made sense in my mind as I was learning it. So I hope that this helped. Check out my other videos. I have a lot of other videos on how to connect with your feminine energy and how to show up in that way. I love you guys. Have a great day, and I will talk to you next time.